This is just a follow-up from my last video on an easy collet system for your lathe. I've done this with my past lathes, and my last lathe was a Logan, and it had a Morse Taper 3 in the headstock. So I just had like Brown and Sharp collets and a couple different collet systems. But it was I needed something with a larger spindle bore, so I had to make this for all of my for my new lathe. And there's a couple things I didn't do on the last one. I showed the backs of these, which I do. I just thread them like half 13, so I could pull them into the spindle bore and keep them tight while I machine the nose, and I could take heavy cuts, without worrying about the taper coming loose. It's Morse Taper 5, and it's self-locking, but it's good to have that safety there. But I think some people thought that with these collets you couldn't go through like with a collet chuck, and you can, because I didn't show the drawbar. So this is for the 5C, and this is I got the tube here. This is 1.5" tight tolerance tube, and it's thin wall, maybe 60 thousandths or 63 thousandths, whatever and it's tubing. It's not pipe. Just remember, if you're doing this and you order 1.5" pipe is measured ID, because it's about the volume inside, and tubing is structural. It's about the OD. So that's what the tube looks like. You could get away with Dom or whatever, but I have a 1.5" spindle bore, and it's actually 1/530. So I got about 30 thousandths of space, and I wanted to make sure I fit perfect. And I could slide this in, slide this one in with the spacer in. So I put an aluminum spacer on there, and the reason I do that is so it comes out and I could loosen it and tighten it here. Also, if something happens with the threads and they get messed up and I have to machine away some threads, I could just take this spacer down and sink that further in. That's why I left about 1 inch of space there. The other thing is I do this with the ER32 spanner wrench cutouts, so I could tighten it. And the reason I do that is because the spanner for the ER32 is super light and small, and I have a few of them. And just to give you an idea, this is like a wrench from my old one that I made real quick. I made a nicer one, and I gave that one away with the lathe, and I made that nut to match the R8 ER32 adapter. So I don't have all types of wrenches floating around. So if you're going to make this, make sure you make it with the same spanner. And then that's the M style. So if you're ordering them, the nuts, M on the part number means it has this spanner wrench size. If you're ordering all the other ones, I would always suggest getting the A style, which is the wrench style, because then you don't have a ton of these spanner wrenches. And an adjustable wrench, a 6-inch adjustable wrench, will get all of them. So that's for that. And you can see that goes all the way through. This is 1.250", so 1.25" I could fit in there, which there's not a collet that will go to 1.25" that I have. They're all like, I think 1.125" is the biggest R8 5C collet I have, and maybe 1 inch for ER40. I don't know. So this is the 5C one, and the way I made these is I took the tube, and since it's thin wall tubing, obviously you can't get the threads on it. That's for the 5C. That's a 1238 by 20 thread. So that's a weird one. Obviously single pointed. All I did was I made a slug to put in there. I cut it right about there. I made the slug this long with a little step, and I drew a little thing right here, and that's it. So that I made to like 1/530, so I can machine it down and match the tubing. And then that is to whatever the inside diameter is, which is like 1/370 or something. and then I pushed that in. I did a nice chamfer right there so I could lay the weld in, and then indicated in the 4-jaw so everything runs concentric with this tube. Clean it up, and then obviously single point it because I don't even know if the 1/238 by 20 tap exists, but you can kind of see that it drops off right past the thread. So there's no reason to even put a thread gutter in there. You just go right into the tube. And then for the other side, I did the same thing, and then I just welded it. I don't know if I could get it. Yeah, I just welded it all the way around, and then indicated it and did the same exact thing. Turn this outside, turn this inside, and you can see that goes in a little bit deeper. And then we'll get this one out of the way. And the spacer works on both of them. It's the same spacer for both of them, the way I measured them out. And then, you know, just a generous chamfer for that weld, which doesn't really stick up too much. And then this one, you can see I welded. I went a little bit deeper. And this one I made before the other one, and I realized that was a lot of boring. So, and it's the same hole diameter there. And then for this side, I did the same exact thing, and I did it longer here too. And then on the next one I did it. And then for the threads, you could do whatever you want. This is 1.5", 12, and I wanted a kind of a coarse thread, but 1.5", 6 was too coarse. So 1.5", 12. This is not to tighten the collet on the ER series. This is just to draw the Morse Taper 5 holder in. So really, you're just going to cinch it down once and do all your tool changes at the collet itself. And then if something happens with the threads, this is pretty long. I could just come in, cut this off, and thread this, and then make a smaller spacer. And that's it. Or just cut it off and make a new slug and put it in. And then somebody suggested shortening the could you shorten the Morse Taper 5. So that was actually a pretty good suggestion. So I did, and I shortened it, and you could see, like, there you go. That's shortened because it was like paper thin out here. But that's about it. You can get as big a stock as you could run in ER32, and then I gave about 50 thousandths extra clearance for the stock. And there you go. Now for the R8, which is kind of like you make it just because, you know, that's what I use on my mill. And if you're in a pinch and you really need it, you got it. But remember, the R8 doesn't go all the way through. And for the drawbar for that, I always keep a 7/16/20 threaded rod around, because one time I had the threads on my drawbar on my mill get screwed up, and I had to take it out, and I had to make a new drawbar for it quick, and I was in the middle of something, and it was a hassle. So now I just keep this around just in case. So you just use that to draw it in. The R8 you're probably not going to be using on the mill, but if they're the only collet you have, I would say make it. Having a good true collet is a pleasure to work with. And if you're going to buy just the collets and you need to get the nut, don't buy just the nut. Buy an extension. And the extension comes in handy a lot of times. So that's how I got the nut for like the ER20 and the ER16. The ER16 I got like a 6-inch extension. So if you got especially if you have like a bed mill, or, you know, like a bench mill, and you're doing like tapping or drilling, you don't have a knee that you could drop down, well, this is great, because you could start with this, and then when you need to get the tap handle in there or the larger drill, you could just take this out and put the other one in. The other thing I would suggest for this, if you're doing this, is I have gauge pins, but you could just buy one gauge pin. A 1/2 inch works great. I would say 1/2 inch, and 1/4 inch is probably a good one to have, especially if you're going to do dovetails for like tool holders. 1/4 inch is a good one because that's a good easy measurement to throw in the most dovetails for like BXA, CXA, maybe AXA. I don't know. It's probably in the 1/8 inch range or something. But yeah, they're only like I don't know, $10 each or whatever. And then I just got a ER11 spindle. So I have a bunch of ER11 collets now. So that's what this one is going to be. So I got to machine out the back, thread it to 1.5" 12, and then machine a nose. But that's it. Hopefully this helps and cleared up some questions from the last video. I really can't think of anything else. Also, I don't think you're gonna be able to tap. Like if the thought is you have 1.5 inches and you're gonna tap it. This is an 1.5 inch tap. This probably takes about 3 horsepower to run through there. I don't know if you're gonna be able to do that. If a machine's gonna, it's possible. If you bore it undersized, you could probably do it with a 1 horsepower machine, but or maybe a breaker bar or something. I don't know. But I did use this to check the threads and run it through, make sure that, because I didn't realize I had this. I did it with I made the male thread first with thread wires and did the measurement, and I did like a class 2 thread on that, and then I machined all of these using this as the master, and then when I ran this through it ran in fine. But that's about it. Oh, and then for the 5C, I didn't show the back of the 5C just in case anybody's wondering. So this is what the 5C looks like. So obviously 1.5 inch tubing, so it could fit on the tubing like that, and then like that. So that just goes in and threads like that. So with the 5C, if you want to get crazy, you can put a thrust washer on the back of it. That way you get a truer clamping force. But I hope this clears up some of the questions from before. And like I said, I had a couple older lathes, and they all had smaller spindle bores. And I did the same exact thing, obviously with much thinner tubing. And I did the ER collets on a Morse Taper 3. And I think I was getting like maybe a 1/2 inch or something like that. I don't know what the largest pass through I can get. And then where I have my lathe, I just got a toolbox, and then the stone I got 6 feet behind it. The only problem is my measurement drawer here. My quick measurement drawer is blocked if I put something through that. But I basically have all the same tools in the and the better tools in the surface plate cabinet. So that's it. That's these. I hope that cleared some stuff up, and if anybody's making these, it helps them out so they don't you don't have to fumble with some stuff. The measurements are mostly, for the most part, free form and based on your lathe. So if I gave you measurements, they don't even matter. And then all of these are all a Morse Taper 5. You just got to indicate it in, or whatever you got, 4.5, 4, 3. You just got to indicate it in on your lathe, and then you're going to use your collets and your collet nut for that. And you could Google all of that. That's specific stuff, but definitely making these like the castle style with the spanner wrench is a good move. And to do that, I should touch on that just in case somebody's wondering how you get this in like a collet block or something. And it's actually, for these, it's pretty simple. You just put on one of the ER collets, you put in some type of piece of stock, and then you put the collet block on the end of it and tighten it. And then you could either use a stop on it, like a 1, 2, 3 block, and butt it up against the 1, 2, 3 block, and then every cut, take it out, turn it, put it in, and lock it. Or you can put a level on it. So set it up, put the collet block there, level it, and make your cuts. Turn it, level it, make your cuts. The other way you could do it is you could put a piece of threaded rod through it with washers on both ends. The thicker, the bigger the threaded rod, the better, because you'll have more land on the nut. And then just use a straight edge on the nut itself. And then bam, bam, like that. Use a straight edge with a level, and you'll be in the ballpark. These all came out decent enough.